Hi and welcome to today's BioStock Live. With us here today we have Klaus Elsborg Olesen, the CEO of Initiator Pharma, who is going to present the company. And I will leave the word to Klaus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. I actually was quite positively surprised that I managed to get over the bridge to Sweden in these difficult situations. So today I'm going to give a brief intro on Initiator Pharma and the ongoing rights issue that we have, and I'll jump right into it. So Initiator Pharma is a spotlight listed company. We've been listed since 2017 and traded under the ticker name of INIT. We are a clinical stage company, meaning that we have one compound in clinical trial and hope to have another one in the trial fairly soon. We are based out of Denmark, and we are consisting of a seasoned management with the industry veterans from the pharmaceutical industry. And besides the strong management, we also have very strong IP for the assets that we are developing. So we just recently completed the successful completion of a phase 2A for erectile dysfunction with our lead candidate, IPED 2015, and we are looking forward to build on to that in the coming months and hopefully get back to the market with more positive stories on that. Today we're going to focus a little bit more on the ongoing rights issue and the compound IP 2018. Just to finish off, we actually have a lot of investors in Initiator Pharma. We have more than 3,500 shareholders, and of course this rights issue that we have going on is reaching out to all of them to participate going forward with Initiator Pharma. So I think that we are in the business of developing a really superior drugs for a range of diseases, which we'll come into today. So our pipeline consists of 4 assets at this time. So the first one is the IP 2015. As I said, we just completed a phase 2 clinical A trial where we demonstrated proof of concept in organic erectile dysfunction. We had a small study of 12 patients, but it was enough to show you that more than 25% of the patients responded very positive to the treatment. And just remember that these patients are very difficult to treat, organic erectile dysfunction patients, and we're very pleased with the results. And we're looking forward to continue the business development on this asset in the future. But today, as I mentioned before, we'll focus on IP 2018. So 2018 is for a little bit different erectile dysfunction. It's what we call psychogenic. I will get back to the differentiation. This is an asset that we acquired through Saniona. It was currently in development in a phase 1 clinical trial for anxiety, and we actually found out it had very good properties for this psychogenic erectile dysfunction that we are focused on. So the company, the asset has completed a phase 1 trial, and we can now take it into a phase 2 trial, and we actually filed the CTA end of March of this year, which we came out to the market. Besides that, we have 2 more assets at the preclinical stage. So we have one for neuropathic pain and we have one for depression. So also compounds that we originally acquired when we started out with 2015. We have been looking into different animal models of how to develop these, and we are still working inside the labs trying to find out where is the best indications to address these 2. So you can say right now that the pipeline is focused. The common denominator is that they are all reuptake inhibitors of what we call monoamines, so that's signal molecules inside the brain, and for that we can actually use it for a range of the conditions as I just outlined, so erectile dysfunction, depression and neuropathic pain, all driven by monoamine distribution and balance. So on the current financing, so we just recently announced that we are going to do a rights issue, and in conjunction to that we actually had a direct issue of shares to our first institutional investor, Nord out of Aalborg in Denmark. They came in with 3 million Swedish at a premium price to the share price at that time. And in the connection with that, we suggested to go to the General Assembly and ask for doing a rights issue. And actually, the combined direct issue, the rights issue, and the warrants associated with the rights issue will actually fund the development of IP 2018 all the way through the phase 2A trial. So just a little bit more specific on the ongoing rights issue. If you want specific details, please refer to our homepage under investors and a rights issue. You should be able to find all the information that you need there. So in summary, so we're going to raise out about 2.1 million shares, and it's going to, so every time 2 shares is issued, we also issue 3 warrants. The subscription price is going to be $4.90, so it's a unit, so you actually pay $9.80, and the warrants are issued free of charge. The subscription period runs from the 2nd of June, so we are in it now, until the 16th of June. And we have actually made sure that it's 100% committed. So we have guarantees for the full amount already in. So, but of course, we are looking forward to bring all our existing shareholders into this as well. So just short on the options or the warrants at the end, the TO2s. So those are, again, you can ascribe those in the period from 24th of November to the 15th of December, and it will be for the same price as the issued shares in this rights issue right now, so 490 Swedish crown per share. With the full exercise of all the warrants and the program, we will actually enable the company to raise 23 million Swedish, and that will finance the development, as I said, of IP 2018. It will support the business development of IPIT 2015, and it will enable us to have money well into 2022. So in a good position to be in for a small company like ours, and also especially in these very difficult times that the COVID-19 has given. So going back to what I talked about before, so often when I've given presentations, we talked a lot about erectile dysfunction, and we had focus on what we call organic erectile dysfunction. I think this is one of the things that most of us probably are familiar with. That is, when we get older, we start seeing that we have problems getting erections. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have listed some of the reasons that we're getting organic ED. So that is AIDS, people suffering from diabetes, lifestyle, overweight, and so on. These are all things that you can also see again in the box underneath between the two circles here. You have it's a gradual onset, so it starts happening slowly from your 40s and it turns over, so intermittent progression. And also one of the things that you start noticing is the lack of what we call AM erections, so morning erections. And then actually we're going to be looking at psychogenic ED. So looking at psychogenic EDs is a little bit different because there's different drivers behind this. This could also very much be young people. So it's performance anxiety in normal. It could be induced by the medication. I'll get back to that. It could be produced by stress or depression. There's actually a lot of young people also get this kind of psychogenic ED, but it also is something we see with older people. So again, here to look at the differentiators for psychogenic, it's suddenly onset we often see. It's a complete loss of the function, and we still actually have the morning erection in this case. So you can say, are this always a clear-cut case between the two? No, it's not. Often we have an overlap between psychogenic and ED of modality, but in this case we split them up here now because we can often discriminate them, but there is often a component in each one. Looking at ED market in general, we see increasing growth for patients suffering from ED, and that's both on the organic and the psychogenic ED. So we know that an expected more than 300 million people will suffer from ED in 2025. We have previously discussed of the PD5 non-responders, it's 30 to 40%, and we know roughly the psychogenic population is about 25% of all ED patients. In some cases it's much higher. Some of the studies that have been going on in Greece shows a higher number of psychogenic ED, but it is a very large portion of the ED is actually driven by what we call psychogenic ED. So today I will focus a little bit on the psychogenic erectile dysfunction, and what we call the key trigger that we see is mild to moderate depression. So we need to find a drug for that. That is the one driving people. So you can say the psychogenic ED is driven by mild to moderate depression. So looking at depression, sexual function, and erectile dysfunction, of course there's some overlaps, and you can say one of the things you're looking at, major depressive disorders accounts for more than 4% of the total burden of all diseases. So there's a lot of patients out there suffering from depressions. We also know that about 68% of the people having depressions also have some kind of sexual dysfunction. This is true both for men and for women. And in the case right now, we are focused on the men because that's where we have the expertise of looking for erectile dysfunction, but it's exactly the same for the women here. And we also know that the medications for depression, so antidepressants that people are taking, often have a very negative impact on erectile dysfunction, ability to achieve orgasm, and libido. So these are things that often when you see that, actually many patients do not like to adhere to the treatment because of the intolerability that they get, that they don't want to have this side effects. They want to be sexual performing, and they cannot do that with the current medicine. And of course, stopping taking your medicine for depression is not a good way to start achieving erections. It's a downward spiral, and that's something you would like to avoid. So we see a clear unmet medical need here. We see a very attractive market. The numbers are very big in major depression disorders. Of course, you can say how much of the market are we going to win. We can see now that none of the antidepressants out there can actually help the erectile dysfunction or help the erections and our sexual performance. We all see them all have a negative effect. Some has a less negative effect, but there's nothing that supports it, like the 2018 compound that I'll show you in a second. So just one slide on science here. So remember, often when we talked about the IP-ED 2015, we talked about dopamine is one of the driving factors behind the erection. So actually what we can do by inhibiting the reuptake of dopamine, we can actually increase the presence of dopamine in here, what we call the synaptic cleft, and this gives a stronger signal leading to the normal, you can say the strengthening of the normal erection pathway. So the compound here that we are having, actually IP 2018, is different from IP 2015 by that it not only has the dopamine component, but it also has a serotonin component. And the serotonin component is actually what drives the antidepressive or the anti-anxiety effects of the compound. So by having this serotonin component, you actually not only get the increased sexual function, but you also increase the way of treating antidepressive patients. So you can say the dual effect of these is because it's a dual inhibitor of two transporters. And then you can say there's a lot of compounds out there that both works on the dopamine and the serotonin. And you can say that this is also a compound we had to dig out from a lot of other compounds where we have the right balance between the dopamine and the serotonin level. If you have too much of the serotonin, it's negative for the sexual function, and if you have too little, you don't get enough for the antidepressants. So again, this compound is very unique in the balance that it binds to both the dopamine and the serotonin reuptake transporter. So the compound that we have, as I said, was something we acquired from Saniona in an option deal, and then we developed the compound going forward. And you can say that the phase 1 trial, it was actually a very clean trial. We saw some what we call a saturated pharmacology consistent with the too much serotonin and dopamine levels. And you can say that the dosing levels that were used in that trial is much higher than what we will use in our trials, so we don't see this. This is a very normal thing for all clinical trials focusing on the central nervous system, especially serotonin and dopamine, that you get to an upper limit where you start getting some nausea or vomiting at the very end. This is also a thing that could have been seen with the 2015 compound, but we didn't see it, and most likely because it needed a lot higher dose for this. When we acquired the compound, we actually got 3 kilos of what we call the API, so the active pharmaceutical ingredient. That is actually the compound that goes into the solution that we give to the patient. And this has been revalidated, and we have actually filed the regulatory protocol, as I said, in March. We expect the approval during the summer 2020, and we expect to dose the first patient mid-2020 pending the COVID-19 situation. Right now, England, where we plan to do the study, is running behind us a little bit in the pandemic, but we are looking maybe a start, as you said, mid-2020. We will get more back to you when we have more information on this. One box that I didn't talk about here is actually the preclinical in vivo efficacy. Here we actually have very good data for this compound, both for the depression and also comprehensive efficacy evaluation of the ED function. So this is a very unique drug candidate with some properties that speaks into the psychogenic erectile dysfunction that we are trying to work here. So this is the overall plan. This is where we're going. You can say now we filed the CTA in Q1. We are looking for a CTA approval, as I said, end of Q1, beginning of Q3 over the summer. And then we actually plan to start the phase 2A clinical proof of concept trial. Here we are looking at a SERT study, so a 3-way crossover study with 2 dose levels. It will be a randomized blinded one. And we will look for clinical efficacy, just like we did in the 2015 compounds with the Regiscan, before and after visual stimulation. Of course, safety and tolerability will be a key component of this trial as well. We'll include patients that are mild to moderate depressions and suffer from ED. So the ones that are just targeting the properties of the drug candidate that we are proposing to use for psychogenic ED. We will expect to have the completion of the clinical trial end of H1 in 2021, where we can have the readout data from this trial. And then we are actually looking, to generate again, just like we're doing with 2015, we're looking to generate a partnership or sale or out-license the asset at that time. So right now we're on the trajectory to have a psychogenic erectile dysfunction proof of concept in first half of 2021. So just a little bit on the positioning. So I spoke a little bit about this, and I will talk a little bit more about it. This is the first time we see an effective treatment for psychogenic ED. We will address, the mild to moderate depressions, and then we will strengthen the natural sexual function. It will be an oral tablet, and it will be this one we anticipate to be, marketed or launched as the first-line treatment of psychogenic erectile dysfunction with the unmet antidepressant properties. It's a very attractive market, as I mentioned before. There's many patients, and there's a lot of sale in antidepressants and psychogenic ED. And then we say there's actually no competition really. So as I mentioned earlier, all the compounds out there being used currently for the treatment of depression do not have anything that strengthens the sexual function. On the contrary, it all inhibits in one way or another. So this is very unique for the compound here. We see that the pipeline in general is very weak within this area. We don't see a lot of things being developed. The most recent things that we have seen has been various gels to apply directly to the penis before intercourse, and that's a recently failed phase 3 trial as well. So we look very unique here. So I think that we are definitely going forward. So this is a first-in-class psychogenic erectile dysfunction and antidepressant drug. So just a brief summary. So a clinical trial, proof of concept trial, is expected to start very soon. We will address a very large unmet need for blockbuster potential. And then we are looking to strike a deal to ensure the continued development. And here I see I made a mistake at writing 2015. It's actually 2018. Of course, we are working on IP 2018 at the same time in parallel. And again, just like with 2015, 18 will improve the quality of life for millions of men and their partners. So upcoming significant and mere midterm milestones. We're all looking for when is the next thing coming out. I think that the first thing that we are looking forward is to get the approval to get into the clinical trial. We have a good track record with the authorities in the UK, and we hope to keep up that, showing that we deliver a good package and get it approved in the first go. We're looking to start the IP 2015 trial mid-summer 2020, as I said. And then we're looking forward to continue the business development on IP 2015 and also bringing that clinical data package that we just finished in March and bring it forward to all the potential partners that we are discussing with. And of course, it can strike some kind of deal. In IP 2018, the phase 2A trial, we read out, as I said, in the first half of 21. And this is some of the really strong upcoming milestones that we see in the future of Initiator Pharma. And with that, I would like to say thank you for your time, and I hope you will enjoy the show. And please join us in the ongoing rights issue and see how we bring Initiator Pharma forward to the treatment of many patients out there in a dire need of medication. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus, for that presentation. You started off by telling us that you had a hard time getting into Sweden due to the coronavirus, of course. That affected you personally, but has the coronavirus in any way or form affected the company? And if so, how?
You can say that. So we were lucky that we finished the dosing of our patients before the corona outbreak really came. So I know a lot of clinical trials have been put on hold for the same reason. So we actually managed to complete all the active part of that before. You can say that as a company per se, we have not been affected directly by the COVID-19. However, you can see that a lot of the business development events that it was planned to happen over the spring and up to now had actually been cancelled, and they actually been cancelled all the way through the summer. So we definitely see less opportunity to meet face-to-face with a lot of the pharma companies that we are talking with. But of course, a lot of this we can maintain by video conferences and Zoom and so on. But it's not always the same when you're trying to kind of feel the teeth of the other one. What is the most attractive deal for them that also matches what you would like for the company to go forward? So of course, we're looking forward to start meeting them face-to-face again. Yeah.
We do have some investor questions.
Yes.
The first one, you actually told us about that in the presentation, but we could take that again.
Yeah.
The rights issue that you're now doing, could you specify how you are going to use the capital, is a question from one investor.
Yeah. So you can say the majority of the money that we raise now in the rights issue is fully focused on the clinical trial of 2018. So just like we did with the IP 2015, we are very a lean, mean organization. We are spending all the money we can on developing the asset. So our burn is very low, and I know if you look into the books, you can see probably one of the lowest burns in the spotlight companies. So we spend most of the money just on the clinical trial. Besides that, we'll maintain the operation of the company, and we also use some of the money for the business development of both 2018 and the 2015 compound. But the majority of the money goes into the clinical trial to generate a proof of concept. Yeah.
Could you, another question from investor,
Yeah.
could you tell us about your strategy to make a deal with Big Pharma or licensing, whatever?
Yeah, so you can say that of course we like to keep the cards a little bit close on some of the things here, what we do, but we actually can say that we have all the way before we started dosing the first patient in the phase 1, we have contact with various pharma companies of mid-size and small and large pharma companies, and telling them the story of what is Initiator and what we can do. And of course, you meet a lot of questions in the first one. The first question we met was, is it safe? And then the next time we met them, we can come back, yeah, well, now we completed the phase 1 trial. It is safe. We don't see anything. And this way, we actually build a long-standing relationship with a lot of the pharma companies. And with the, say the proof of concept now that we generated in March, we're using that to go out to them again and continue in the discussion and saying, how would this fit into what your strategy is? Because of course, like everything with a deal, the way you get the best price, there also something that fits to their pipeline. So of course, we're looking into how can we position that. And one of the things that we have done is we have actually spent time on, drafting and outlining what is the future development path of the 2015 compound. What is the phase 2B trial, which is an intercourse study where you bring it home to the partner. How is that going to look? How many patients are you going to include? Are you going to do different doses? Are you going to keep the same? So all this we have done trying to give the potential acquirers of the asset, a visibility of what is it, how much do we need to put in to get this to the market. And this is something that is highly appreciated by the pharma companies, and also part of the reason why we get invited back to go and speak with them. So that's where we are right now.
The next question, of course, you answered parts of it. Do you have any ongoing discussions right now, and or do you need your proof of concept study first?
Yeah. So of course, I interpret this question more on the 2018 because we have a proof of concept in the other one. I think that what we actually one of the reasons why we started looking for the 2018, a modality, something to treat, was actually a lot of feedback from a lot of the companies that we spoke to. They understand ED, but they also see that there's organic ED and there's psychogenic ED was something that was very interesting. So a lot of the companies, especially you can say that the mid-sized pharma companies who's trying to find for a niche, and when I'm saying mid-sized pharma, we're still talking about $1 billion in revenues. They were looking to find something that differentiates them because they want to avoid maybe what some people would say a head-to-head competition with Viagra, but it's not. As I said many times before, we are very different from Viagra. We can treat the patients resistant to Viagra. But they definitely saw the psychogenic treatment. So this is, of course, it's not an idea that we said, oh, now we need to find something new to do. This is actually a demand that we have met many times when we have been out presenting 2015. They're coming back to us and say, what about this psychogenic component? Do you have anything there? And then we looked into it and we identified some compounds that actually were good, and then we just did a selection strategy from there.
Last question here. What milestones, maybe value-adding milestones, do you expect to achieve in the near future?
Yeah, so now for me a really important one is to get the approval for the phase 2A trial for the 2018 compound. Right now we have a compound that is ready for a clinical trial, but it's not in a clinic for a phase 2 before we have the approval. So of course this is something that is really important for me. And you can say so, and also then you can say the rights issue, of course, is important because that's part of the strategy of going forward with the 2018 compound. So we are really glad that we brought on our first institutional investor, Formonor, that we have spoken, just like the pharma companies, over many, many years. And you can say that we hope that we will see many more of these coming in to see there's a very unique proposition in Initiator Pharma, and the things that we do is done in a good manner and very cost effective. So I think that so 2018, the rights issue are the first immediate ones. Of course, the first dosing of the first patient is going to be a big milestone again. That's, you know, a spotlight listed company starting its second phase 2 clinical trial. I think that's very unique. And then you can say that then the development of the business development of 2015 and 18 throughout the year is going to be exciting as well. And then of course we all have our fingers crossed for the you know, first half of 2021 with the clinical readout for the 2018 compound for psychogenic erectile dysfunction. So.
Thank you very much for today, Klaus.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming here and presenting Initiator Pharma. We will wish you good luck going forward.
Thank you very much, and I hope we have the ability to get back to Denmark.
Yeah,
Thank
hopefully,
you.
And for all the viewers online, we will thank you as well. And we will actually have a presentation going on tomorrow as well. So you can follow us there. Thank you.